All right. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing amazing this afternoon. We got a very special live coming to you. Going to be having a money conversation with my personal CPA. And he works with a lot of amazing clients. We're going to talk about profitability, cash flow, and a whole bunch of other money conversations that we want to have. Do me a favor when you jump on, please share this out. Tag some folks that need to be here. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Ryan McCray with The Funnel Doctor. We help creative entrepreneurs grow and scale online using sales funnels and paid advertising. So waiting for our esteemed guest to come on. But like I said, do me a favor, share this out, drop it in someone's story, in someone's DM, because we have a great conversation about maximizing profits. A lot of us talk about revenue and how much money our business makes, but we don't talk enough about how much money. Let's see. Should have accepted.
Pretty good.
There we
How's
go.
everything going?
Ephraim, what's going on, my brother? How you doing? Man, everything's going good.
Yeah,
Got back home safe.
yeah. No, it's
Imagine you got
thank
back home
God
safe as
Atlanta's
well.
not too far from Houston. You know, it's just about an hour and some change and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
man,
Yeah, that's good. Y'all be staying up late, man. Listen, I can't hang with y'all. And I'm
man,
like,
we
you
be up, man, we be up. But the cool thing about it is,
know what I'm
when we're up,
saying?
there's always some game being kicked, amongst everybody, and some good stuff really talked about. It's things that you can implement in your business.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. The conversation is always next level. That's why it's like I always just leave with so many nuggets and just really just expanding my mind. Because, sometimes when we're, here or in our own city, you just get caught up in the day to day and the mundane stuff. So you definitely need that just on a regular basis. Just
Definitely,
keep the ideas flowing
man.
and just keep, thinking about that next
Yeah.
level. hmm So yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I know you're very busy. You got a lot going on. It's tax season, of course. But first and foremost, if someone has been hiding under a rock and they don't know who you are, definitely just
Yeah.
explain to people,
Shout out to everybody
who
in the
you
calling.
are, what you do, and
My
so
name is
forth.
Ephraim. I'm a CPA based out of Houston, Texas. I own an accounting firm, an accounting and fractional CFO advisory firm, actually, called EFS Group PLLC, where we help our clients manage their cash flow so they can scale their businesses with confidence. And, we've been in business now since 2009. Um, yeah, so this is our 14th year in business. It's crazy, right? Yeah. I have a story behind that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Was in corporate America before I started the business. They got me out of there quick. They got me out of there quick. I mean, but that was around that 2007, 2009 timeframe when the economy was really, really bad. If anybody remembers that, if you remember that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, that was like the recession before this one, right? It was the Great Depression, supposedly, right? So they let a lot of people go. I was one of the people that was let go. I always knew I wanted to be in entrepreneurship, but I didn't realize it was going to be that quick in my career because I was only in corporate for 2 years. So
Yeah,
after they let
yeah,
me know
yeah,
I'm looking
yeah,
for
yeah.
work, can't find nothing. This is 6 months, waking up every single day, applying, looking for jobs. No one was hiring, right? And there was this one day I just woke up and I was like, man, I'm not doing this no more. Like I'm not looking for no more jobs. I'm going to start my own business, right?
Mm.
I'm going to start it and we'll just see what happens, And people at that time thought I was crazy because business, people did business, but back then it wasn't like it is now, right? Like now there's a lot more interest in it. So a lot of people
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I knew back then, I'm sure they were probably looking at me like, are you really sure you're going to do this? Like, you sure you don't want to continue looking? Like something's going to open up at some point. Um, but I always did taxes for people,
yeah.
even before I started the company, right? So I always knew, okay, that's a skill set that I had that I could, do. So I opened up a tax company at the time, and did that for some years before really just starting to focus on small businesses and helping them with growing their companies from a financial perspective. So that's where we are now.
Mhm. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know, number one, how long you were in business. I didn't really know about your journey before that. I worked in corporate, got fired out of corporate, didn't look for another job, didn't want to go up the corporate ladder, didn't want to play that game.
Yeah,
So I definitely was curious on, how you got started. If, like you said, you were doing on the side, how you eventually became a CPA, and then just built this amazing company
I
that,
appreciate that,
you've
man.
grown,
Yeah, no,
and
I
I'm
mean,
happy to be a client
honestly,
of as well.
it's been 14 years, but I want to say probably the first 9 to 10 years, I was really just playing around. I wasn't like, oh, you know how you're going through the motions. Say what?
Really? For that long? Really?
Yeah,
I
because if you think about it,
said, really, for that
like
long? For
I want to
9 to 10 years
say
of it, really?
probably the first 6 years, I was just doing taxes, right? So taxes is seasonal, January through April. So especially the first few years I was in business, I would
Yeah,
work
right,
from
right.
January through April and then have fun the rest of the year. Like I'm talking about traveling, partying, just having fun and just like no responsibilities at all. But then once the end of the year came, I had no money left and I was like, okay, I need to make money. So it was like a constant cycle of making the money, right, making the money. And I was able to manage it
Good
decently.
cycle,
So it
yeah.
didn't really kill me too much. But one thing that I realized was that I was racking up a lot of credit card debt. So that was kind of supporting my lifestyle at that time. So it was just one year I was like, you know what, I need to get serious with this. And the woman I was dating at that time, who is now my wife, she was like, when are we gonna get married? Shout out to Rita. She was like, when are we gonna get married? I was like, okay,
Shout
I
out to
gotta get
Rita.
my stuff together. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't continue doing this. I need to get my life together on that end. And I just started to really take it a lot more seriously. And it wasn't until I started to really focus on recurring revenue. That was when things started to take off. Like how can I work with clients instead of just once a year? Because I'm a relationship person. I really like the relationship building aspect of business. And the recurring revenue, working with clients on a monthly basis or weekly, however much time we're working with them, to where we can impact their business, can really, really, I felt would be an impact to them, and it would also help us, right? So really started working on that and really was able to grow and scale. And, here we are now. I think now we have somewhere between 25 to 30 people on our team, and we're servicing around 100 to 120 clients
Wow.
on a regular basis.
Mm. Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, so just think about it, y'all. Like all the people that you've been able to hire, provide employments for, all the clients you've been able to help, you've been able to help me, definitely grow my business and scale my business and hire people and, put money away so I can close on a property and so forth. And I'm just one client out of the hundreds, so definitely think about that. I see some comments already coming in. And I do got a rack of questions because like it's a lot of people like asking questions, a lot of tax questions, money questions. The streets is talking. So what better person to come and answer these questions than you? Let's say it'd be the women, make you tighten up, Rita. And I know Rita's a big pivotal part of the success and growth of the company. Just of course being your wife, but then also being a partner in the
Oh,
business. So of course you
for
can talk
sure,
about
for
that, but I
sure. I mean,
already know
she's
that
been
firsthand. That's
huge.
a big part of it as well.
She inspired me from the very beginning. Like when we were dating, she hates me talking
Mm,
about this, but like she was a stellar student in college, right? She went to Howard University, graduated with a 4.0 in accounting. So when I saw that, say what?
that's major.
It's major, it's major, but she hates me talking about
I
it.
said
But
that's major.
when I found that out about her, because we were hanging out, we were in her room, and I was looking through her stuff, and I saw like a college transcript. Her college transcript was out, and I was like, wait a minute, a what? Like what? Like like what's going on or whatever. So that sparked my interest even more. I was like, okay, this is an intelligent woman, outside of how she looked. And then one of the biggest things that inspired me was the CPA exam, right? Like that's a challenging test. And I was having a hard time passing it, and I thought something was wrong with me. But then what I realized was that I just wasn't focused, right? Like I was doing it, but I was doing it half-assed. And I'll never forget, because we dated long distance for 5 years. So I was in Houston. She was in, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. After she graduated from Howard, she stayed in like the Virginia area, right? So I would be, and I haven't been to DMV in a minute, man. I got to come back. But I would be in the DMV every other month, right, visiting her. And I'll never forget, I was there one weekend, and, she was like, yeah, I'm going to take one of the tests tomorrow on Saturday. This was Friday. The hardest part of the test is called FAR, financial, right? That's like advanced accounting in general. But one of the things that she told me was that she started studying for the exam, I think either Wednesday or Thursday. I was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? Like, there's no, you started studying like 3 days before the exam.
What?
And I'll never forget, like that Friday, we're hanging out. Like, I'm sure I was a big distraction or whatnot. And then like when I went to bed, I just saw her still up studying. And I think she pulled an all-nighter that Friday, had the test the next morning, went to go take it. And in my mind, I was like, there's no way this girl's going to pass this exam or whatnot. No way. Like, because I know how hard the exam is because I've taken it and I failed it like a few times. So I was like, there's no way she's going to pass it. That girl passed it with like a 80 or whatever, right? And the passing score is like a 75. And so every CPA understands that whether you score a 75 or 99 or 100, it's still the same. Like, there's no extra points for scoring like super high, right? So she passed that part of the exam.
Right. As long as you pass it, right.
I got someone on my hands that's like just on a different level. You know what I'm saying? So that really, right.
He bought that ring that night, y'all. He bought the ring that night.
I gotta really step myself up, like I was just playing around back then. So, over time, just being around her and her energy, it really helped me to like get focused and just level up or whatnot. So I definitely give her a lot of credit.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to the Black Love Stories. If y'all getting that value in the chat, let us know. Of course, I love these stories. Yeah, definitely. So this wasn't intended to be like a Black Love type of interview, but we done pivoted and went there.
Yeah.
But no, I love it though. Like, that is really amazing. Rita's definitely a genius. So you just really, blessed and lucky to have her. So one of the first, main questions, and I was, kind of asking some people, like, what are some questions? And people got tons of questions, a lot of misinformation out there as well, of course, what is the ERC? I see a lot of people talk about it, the ERC tax credit, and like maybe it's some misinformation about it. Even I'm still not fully aware of what it is. So like, can you like definitely break that down and explain to people like what that is?
Credit. So we call it ERTC, Employee Retention Tax Credit. So essentially, it's a credit where if you were an employer that you hired employees, right, and you were paying them W-2 payroll, and you were paying them W-2 payroll in 2019, 2020, 2021, the IRS was like, you know what, since COVID happened in 2020 and a lot of people had to close down their businesses, we're going to allow this credit to happen. And essentially what the credit is you look at your revenue in 2019 and you look at it in 2020. If your revenue was, I want to say 30 to 50% lower in 2020 versus 2019, and they look at it at each quarter, right? So you would break it down quarter 1 through quarter 4. So based upon the quarter, if your revenue was down by 30 to 50% in 2020's quarter 1 versus quarter 1 of 2019, then you would qualify for potentially getting a tax credit, right? So you can do this for the year 2020, and then even 2021, you can do it in comparison with 2020 as well, right? So, and then also keep in mind too that the IRS in a lot of states mandatorily shut down a lot of businesses, right? How many of you remember during that time where you had a mandate that you had to not work in your office? You had to shut down your operations, right? So they said, if you had a shutdown during any period, you automatically qualified. If you were still paying, right, if you were still paying your employees, right? So this credit is for people that were still paying their people even when they were losing money or they were downsized, right? So you would pretty much look at let's say your payroll is with, I don't know, ADP, Paychex, Gusto, whoever's with, you would get your 941s. Those are your quarterly tax reports, and you would now compare it to the previous quarter. Well, no, you wouldn't. You would compare your revenue, right? So your bookkeeping. This is why your bookkeeping is extremely important. You would look at your revenue and compare it to the previous year, and then you would now take your 941s and you can do the calculation based upon, okay, here's how much money I could potentially amend the 941 and get back, right? There was a company that we did this for, and they got 900K back. Yeah. So it took about a year
Wow.
and a half, 2 years, right? Because the government honestly was like, man, this is a lot of money. We need to look into this. We're not going to give this person all this money immediately, right? So they drug it out, but that person ended up getting all their money, you know. So it's definitely a real tax credit that everyone needs to look into. That's why it's so important to pay people via payroll, you know. It's so important, right? I need to, before I
Yeah.
end it, I just want to say, if you took the PPP in any of those periods, you would have to subtract that revenue or not revenue, but the money that you paid in payroll out of that calculation. Yeah. So I mean, it can
The
be
one
kind
you
of
got from
tricky to
that.
do the calculation, but there's accountants such as myself that can help with doing that for you if you need it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if you definitely need that, definitely make sure you contact Ephraim. Of course, definitely give you the information on how you do that. I'm sure you got tons of links in his bios. Do you see a lot of people not taking advantage of it when they should, or even
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not,
yeah. There's a
fully
lot of
knowing
people
about
that
everything that they can
don't
get
know
with that?
about it. You know, it's a perfect credit for anyone, but it's especially people that have a lot of employees. You know, like, so if you're in trucking, you're in the restaurant industry, you're in the daycare industry, you know, any companies that hire a lot of people, those are the companies that you really need to look into it. And even if you didn't hire a lot of people, we got the tax credit. We didn't hire a bunch of people, um, you know, at that time, you know, so you can definitely get some money back from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you talked about a little bit about, of course, balancing your books and that type of stuff. So definitely explain to people the importance of that. And, can you break down a little bit of, like a P&L statement, what that is, profit and loss statement,
Yeah, no, great
and like how
question, man.
often should we review our
Bookkeeping,
profit and
a
loss
lot of
statement?
accountants don't like bookkeeping. I love it. I love bookkeeping, right? Because
Right.
you can't really do anything out without it, right? Like, you can't analyze the statements with your client to let them know what's going on if you don't have books in front of you. You can't do tax planning if you don't have the books in front of you. You can't do forecasting and future analysis if you don't have the books in front of you, right? So it's so important that
Mhm.
they're done and they're done accurately. There's so many people that aren't doing their books accurately, that are not taking it seriously, you know, and they're just putting things
Right.
together. They'll give you a spreadsheet at tax time or whatnot, you know, but it's so important because here's the thing. There's going to come a time where you will want to get lending for your business, right? When I first started my business, I wasn't looking at getting
Right.
lending. I didn't
Right.
care about that. But as I got more knowledge and I got more
Mhm.
experience, I realized that
Mhm.
getting lending, especially lending from a bank where it could be a line of credit, it could be a loan, credit card, which is with a decent interest rate, and you just make a once a month payment, is so key for you to really accelerate and grow your business, right? So many times we slow grow, and we could grow even quicker
Yeah.
if we had access to capital, right? So getting is a really good way to grow your business
Mhm.
before you go to, let's say, an investor, right? So the books are so important. Let's say you want to sell your business,
Mhm.
right? If How are you going to get the maximum value for your business if you don't have the numbers to support how your business is performing? You see what I'm saying? And then obviously come tax time, right?
Right.
Whenever you're about to file your
Right.
taxes, if you have your
Mhm.
books done, you already have an idea of how much you'll potentially owe. Or let's say in November, December, you can make some adjustments to help you not owe as much,
True.
right? So that's why it's important. Um, when I look at the financial statements or bookkeeping, right, they consist of
Mhm.
a couple different financial statements. One of them is the profit and loss statement, aka the income statement, right? That tells you how much money, how much revenue or sales you had in a given period. And it also tells you what your expenses were in that given period as well, right? And then it tells you at the bottom, here's what my profit was for that period, right? So it's very important to understand, let's say, how well you did in a certain month, and then how well you did in a year, and then compare it to previous years and all that, right? Your balance sheet is important. It's probably the most important financial statement because it tells you the valuation of your business, essentially, right? It tells you what your assets are at any given moment, right? So assets, cash, property, equipment, all those things are assets. And it tells you what your liabilities are in your business, right? So if you have a credit card, line of credit, EIDL, any kind of debt that you're paying on, those would be considered liabilities, right? Shopify loan for those of y'all who are in e-commerce, right? And then it tells you what your equity is, right? So your equity consists of, your retained earnings, right? So your retained earnings are essentially at the end of the year, however much profit or loss you have gets rolled into that retained earnings. And then, it just either builds or it grows. Your own contribution, right? How much money did you contribute as an owner to the company, right? Out of your pocket, owners draw, right? For those of you who aren't on payroll and who are taking money out of your business, that potentially can affect your equity in your business, right? Because you're decreasing the value potentially. And then, I think that's everything, if I'm not mistaken, within that. And then obviously, if you have people investing in your company, then those components make that up too. Then your statement of cash flows, that's another financial statement that tells you the flow of your cash, right? It lets you know, hey, because a lot of people say, Ephraim, I've made X amount of dollars in this month. I made, let's say I made 20 grand in the month of March. But when I look at my bank account, I only have $500. What happened? And your income statement is, excuse me, your income statement is telling me that my profit is 5 grand. Why do I not see $5,000 in my bank account? Well, you don't see that because when we look at the statement of cash flows, it's telling us where the money is going, right? So it's telling us that your money is going towards, let's say, paying down loans. It's going towards owner's draw. Like there's so many different things that your money could be getting eaten up for, right? So those things can affect it, but you're not going to know all these things if you're not on top of your numbers on that minimum a monthly basis.
I love that. I love how you broke that down. If y'all like how he broke that down, definitely drop something in the comments. If you don't know everything that he talked about, definitely make sure you highlight him and schedule a call. I love that. So I love how you talked about, of course, leveraging OPM, other people's money, making sure, all your statements are correct. And, of course, as you know, the most important thing, like the best time to get a loan or get funding or access to capital is when you don't need it. So being able to prepare for it and make sure, you have your statements and, statements of cash flows and everything like that. So I love how you broke that down. And there's probably a lot of people out there thinking, well, how would I just go to H&R Block? Let me just go to Jackson Hewitt. What's the difference between going through one of those franchise companies or getting with an actual accountant or CPA? Because I know a lot of people want to try to cut corners and go to one of those franchise
I mean,
people.
that
But what would you
might
say to
work for
those?
you if you are in the beginning stages of your, let's say, career, or if you have a business and your business is making some decent money, it probably doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to go to those chains at all, right? Because they're not going to be able to tell you a lot of the things that you're going to need in order to, let's say, tax plan or just to grow your business in general, right? When you go to them or you go to any tax person, a lot of times we'll go in, let's say, February or March or April. But by that point, it's too late. If let's say you made a bunch of money in your business, right? So there's times where I've had people, they'll make, let's say, 50 grand one year, and then the next year it's 600,000, right? And you're coming with the spreadsheet, and it's like, bro, it's too late. Like, there's nothing that we can really do, and you're like, your tax bill is probably going to be 150 grand or 200K, but you're angry at me, but it's like you should have like been proactive with what's going on in your business. When you see all this money coming in, that moment you're like, look,
Right.
let me consult somebody, right? So H&R Block and those chains aren't necessarily the best people to use because they're going to file what you give them, right? They're not going to be able to really give you the advice that you need, like the higher level advice that's needed.
Yeah.
Right? Things such as tax planning wise, hey, if I have children, how do I incorporate them into my business to where I can take a deduction, right? Things like how do I, if I own a home and I have a team, how can I do meetings out of my home and pay myself versus going to do that same meeting at a hotel, right? And now I can get that deduction in the business and I can get income into my pocket, right? So, man, if y'all even understood how they hire at HR Block in Jackson, you would say I'm not going, right? Because, right, just think about it as, okay, each year, let's say December, you have, let's say you do a webinar, but in person, and you're like, hey, I'm inviting all people to come do this training, and then I'm going to hire you, and you're going to be put in front of people who have tax situations, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm acting as if I do know what I'm doing, you know, and I'm going to just bullcrap my way through this whole thing or whatnot. And as long as I filed everything that you gave me, then I'm good, right? So you might end up coming out of there owing way too much more money than what you're supposed to owe.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Dr. Vanessa had a good question. She said, what's considered like decent amount or decent money to transition? So like, if you say like, well, if you're making 50,000 a year, maybe they're okay. You know, I probably wouldn't recommend them anyway, but if you're making 50K, like once you hit six figures, you should go with the, you know, regular accounting firm like EFS, you know, or is it, you know, 200K? Like, what would you say is like numbers wise, what's a good transition to get with someone like you?
Accountant's favorite saying, it depends, right? It depends. So to answer the question, it depends on, first of all, are we talking about someone that's a business owner or an employee of a company, right? So if we're talking, okay, so if you're an entrepreneur slash business owner,
I think she means
I would say when your profit has gotten to a certain point, let's say $50,000 to $60,000 in profit, right, is when it makes sense. Because let's say you have a business and you're looking at your bookkeeping and you're not necessarily profitable at that moment, you're at a loss, then you can have HR Block file your return because you're not going to owe any money, essentially. So they're going to file what you've given them, right? But once you start to become a profitable business, and let's say you're at $50,000, actually, it could possibly be lower. It all depends on your tolerance on how much money you want to pay in taxes, right? But once you start becoming a profitable business, I think honestly it would make sense to probably go to somebody else, such as a CPA or an EA, someone that can help you to say, you know what, these are the things that you need to do and make adjustments for in your company.
That's a really good answer. Roosevelt said the franchisees don't know nothing about accelerating depreciation to get your tax bill down or put you in position to get your bill lowered before the end of the year. True. Definitely. And another thing that I love that y'all do as a company, specifically for your clients, is profit first. So profit first has exponentially, helped me having my different accounts, being able to put money in different buckets, having an account for my expenses and to pay the team and pay myself, run my payroll and all the other stuff, taxes and that type of stuff. So can you explain to people what profit first is if they're not familiar with it? And what made you decide to, go with that accounting method as
Yeah,
opposed
great
to like a
question. So
general
Profit
accounting
First
principle
essentially
or
is
something else?
a money management system for entrepreneurs to where you as the owner are put first, right? So a lot of times when we're running our businesses, we are not necessarily paying ourselves, right? There's times where we're operating and we're just pouring all the money back into our companies, right? But then when we look at our personal balance sheet, we don't have anything to show for it, right? So it's all about how can I grow this business, but also take care of myself as well, right? So I had been wanting to do something like this before I even heard about Profit First for clients, but I just couldn't really figure out the best way to explain it, right? And the thing that I like about it is it's a great system that you can give somebody that they can implement it into their company, right? It's going to probably take a little bit of a mindset adjustment because you are going to, have to manage your money differently versus you just having all of your money in one bank account, essentially, right? So essentially how it works is you have 5 different bank accounts that you open, right? You have a revenue account, you have an owner's pay account, you have an expense account, a profit account, and a tax account. And based upon how much money you're making in your business, you will now have different percentages that you would be assigned that you would transfer money in between, right? So you're transferring the money, and the first account that you transfer money to is your owner's pay account. Why? Because you're making sure that you get taken care of first. Second account is your profit account. Third account is your tax account. And then last account is your expense account, right? And so now, whenever it's time for you to pay yourself, you already know how much you can pay yourself based upon the money that's in your owner's pay account. Beautiful thing about this system is if you do this right, at the end of the quarter, which we just ended Q1, you can now look at how much money is in your profit account and give yourself a bonus, right? Because a lot of corporations do what? They do quarterly dividends to their stockholders. But for many of you, you are your only stockholder in your company. So why can't you do that for yourself, right? So you can give yourself a bonus at the end of the quarter of 50% of the money that's in your profit account, right? So that's the beautiful thing about it. It's a really good money management system, and it really helps people to get over the hurdle of managing the money. Because if you can manage your money, you're a dangerous business owner, I feel. Because now you can really grow, right? And here's the kicker too.
Yeah, right.
If you are managing your money properly and you go to the bank to get lending, they're going to be more apt to give you money because they're looking at you as an asset. They're looking at you as someone that's going to manage the money that they give you properly. And they're going to look at you as, okay, this person's going to be able to pay me back the money. And then if this goes well, I can give them more money in the future and they can pay back the money. And this could be a strong relationship. But if you're going to them like how we normally do, where we have no money in the account, most banks or most lenders are going to look at you like, man, this person's a liability. So now they can get the one up on you, right? They can now give you a bad loan at 30%, and you have no choice to pay for it because you're in a dire strand and you really need the money, right? But how about managing the money to where you're not going to someone in a place of need? You're going in a place of abundance, right? So, yeah.
I love that. Let me know in the comments, are y'all using Profit First or not? Some of you may not have heard of Profit First. Some of you may have heard of it, but not actually implemented it. And what I love about your team is you all literally, when we first got on board becoming a client, you literally had like a quick start of walking us through the entire process of setting it up. So it wasn't just like, hey, read the book, get the principles, do it yourself. It was like, no, I think we had a call at least once a week or once every 2 weeks of actually going through, setting up, helping us set up the accounts, doing the transfers, first and 15th, giving us a spreadsheet on how we can actually calculate the numbers and put our percentages and stuff like that. So that's what I loved about you all, is you literally held
That's
our hands through
amazing,
the
man.
entire process.
It's amazing.
And I
I
still
have a
use it to
question
this
for
day.
you too, if you don't mind. Because I know that you were a part of the Chase Minority Program.
Of course.
And at the end, you worked with Nathan, and you guys did some line of credit work or whatnot. How was that process for you?
It was good. So thank you so much for just referring me to the Chase Minority Program, and shout out to Nathan. He was my mentor going through the program. So the program, just first in general, was really good. So we went through a lot of different sessions. I think it was actually a full 6 months. It went by fast, but I think it was a 6-month program, and we met bi-weekly, and we talked about like access to capital. We talked about operations, how to really, like you said, prepare your business for lending or funding and access to capital, and just to make sure, you have your numbers in place and that type of stuff. And then at the end, they actually did give me a line of credit. And the process was actually, pretty easy. And he was like, I know you work with Ephraim, so I know it'll be pretty easy to get you approved for some funding. So like literally, like all my numbers were in place, my balance sheet, my P&L, like tax returns, everything were in place. So literally it was just me about going in zero or just reaching out to your team and getting the documents that they needed, sending them over. And then they definitely gave us a line of credit. I think it was like 15K line of credit. And they said it probably would have been more if I had a relationship with them. So I like have no accounts with Chase. I have no, personal or business accounts with Chase. I bank with PNC, so they still gave me that line of credit. And like I said, they said
That's
it probably
dope. I
could have
think it's
got me
amazing
more
that
if
they
I actually had accounts
didn't
with
have a
them.
relationship with you because, like you said, you were with PNC and you were still able to get some money out of them and stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was happy, because first I was like, are they really going to give me like, a line of credit, or are they really going to actually give me some funding? And then, once they looked at my numbers, tax returns, everything like that, the rep I was working with, Nathan handles more of the educational side of it. And then he referred me to his partner that handles the actual banking stuff. So she was like, I know I'm going to get you something. It's just a matter of like how much I can get you. So I was still happy to get that. And then once you have that relationship with them, then it's much easier to just get
Nice,
credit,
man. Nice.
line of credit
Congratulations on
increase.
that.
So that's what I'll be looking to do next. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And like I said, you were the one that definitely introduced me to the
Yeah.
program. And I'm seeing Chase just do a lot more with Black businesses. Like a lot more branches are being opened up in Philly and other places that I go. So I definitely can see the initiative that Chase
Yeah.
is
Oh, yeah.
taking
Yeah.
with
No, Chase
really
is
helping Black
definitely
businesses get the
doing
funding that they
their
need.
part or whatnot. I just hope that they don't say anything crazy like the Wells Fargo CEO. I don't know, because I'm enjoying the relationship.
Right.
So as long as they don't say anything
Right.
wild, then I'm Chase for life.
Yeah, right. Listen, I rock with them, so definitely thank you for that. And if y'all got any questions, definitely drop them down. We only got a few more minutes. Ephraim is a very busy person, so just happy to have you on here. So one of my last questions is, what's the number one write-off that you think either accountants miss or just people in the general public don't think about
Yeah, number one
that
would
they
be
can take
depreciation.
advantage of that they don't?
That comes to mind immediately, right? Because a
Mm,
lot of
mm,
accountants do miss that. It's real easy to miss it if you're not in the books and you're not seeing the assets that the client has, or if you don't have prior knowledge of assets
mm,
that they might
mm,
have outside of the business. Because there's times where, let's say you tomorrow, Ryan, was to buy an SUV that you were using 100% for your business, but you bought it in your personal name, but you're using it 100% for the business, and you have another car that you're using for personal.
mm,
You can write that card off. Like that's 100% deduction because it's over 6,000 pounds in weight,
mm,
and
mm,
you pay, let's say, 30 to 60 grand for it. If you have a big profit, that's something that you can write off, right? Because you can 100% depreciate that thing. So, and then let's say you buy different
mm,
equipment, right? It could be a MacBook for 2,500 or 3,000. Camera equipment that's really expensive. Those things can be depreciated fully versus expensed, right? So when it's depreciated, it looks better profit-wise on your
mm,
tax return and on your income statement because it's an asset, right? So for example, let's say you made 100 grand and your profit, you spent a 50,000 in expenses, so your profit is 50 grand, right? And you bought a $50,000 Escalade for the business.
mm.
You can have a $50,000 profit whenever you're going to go to Chase to get a line of credit or a loan and still pay no taxes because that 50,000 can get 100% depreciated, right? Via Section 179, right? Right,
Wow.
via
That's the
Section
game right there.
179,
I
and
hope
so
y'all caught
now
that.
you get to not pay taxes and you get a chance to get some lending because you're profitable in the bank's eyes or whatnot. So trying to figure out how to depreciate as much stuff as possible I would say as long as it's over 2,000 to 2,500 and it's an asset, that can go on your balance sheet and it could be depreciated at the end of the year.
I love that. And that was going to be one of my questions actually was, how do you write off like the vehicle, for instance? Because I know a lot of people are like, write off your vehicle, put in your business name. Like, do you have to, if you want to do that, let's say, do you have to pay for it up front? Can you still lease or finance it? Or, what are the certain criteria that it, has to meet to be able to be used for a business
Yeah, I can
expense?
speak from
So I know a lot of
experience. I
people
mean,
kind of get
we
that stuff
bought a
mixed up
Lexus
sometimes.
SUV. We paid for it cash at the time, and we were able to put it in the business's name immediately, just because it was cash bought, right? But let's say you want to finance, because financing honestly is the best choice a lot of times for the business, because it's protecting your cash flow. And even if you're paying interest, you get to write that interest off and you get to take the full deduction, right? So if you want to do that by financing, you have to have some kind of business credit history with Lexus or with whoever you're buying the car from.
Okay.
Right? Because if there's no kind of history, then, well, okay, let me take it back. If you don't want to personally guarantee it, you have to have business credit history, right? If you're okay with personally guaranteeing it, which may not be a big deal, because now if you personally guarantee the first car, whenever you go back to buy the second car, you now have some history, and you potentially may not have to personally guarantee it, right? But if you're trying to go the no PG route, having business credit history is good. And then obviously, you can lease the car as well. So you can lease the car in your business's name, and then you can get that to build your business credit history as well. So there's so many different ways. You can cash it out, you can finance it, or you can lease it. Leasing, if you lease, every payment that you're making each month is a direct deduction for that year, right? And then if you finance it or cash it out, then you can write off that. Well, depending upon how big the car is, you can write off the full amount of the car that year as well, if it's 100% used for business.
Man, I love that. Listen, you be giving people the game for real. Anything else y'all need after this live, you don't have to pay for it. But if anybody got any last questions, feel free to drop it down. Even if you got any last words, and of course, if someone is interested in like, listen, this stuff is great. I need to get with an expert. I need to get with an expert team to just handle my books, do my taxes, tax planning and so forth.
Yeah,
of course,
definitely.
how can
So
they
there's
just,
a link in my bio, a link
become a
tree
client?
link. And in there's a link, I think it's the second one or the third, where it talks about, is EFS a good fit for you? So when you click on that link, it'll take you to my questionnaire. So once you fill it out, then we'll get it. And then once you fill it out and you click submit, you will get a Calendly link to where you can schedule a call with me for free. And you can do it like that. So you can jump on my calendar. My calendar is open for right now. So yeah. Right.
Okay, so right. He on that 8-figure focus, so I guess that's my last question is, I know you got that 8-figure focus, so what is like an 8-figure focus? In your mind, what does 8-figure focus mean? And for like your clients when you're, doing 8-figure planning and stuff like that, if somebody's trying to get to 6 or at 6 trying to get to 7,
Great question, man.
what
So
does that
8-figure
look like
focus
in
is a
your
brand
mind?
that I started on Clubhouse, actually. I want to say December 2020. And we turned it into
Yep.
man,
Like a Clubhouse legend out here.
So
them
we turned
rooms
it
was
into a
legendary
brand
for
and a
real.
podcast. So essentially, 8-figure focus, a lot of people might hear that and think, oh, he wants everybody to make $10 million or whatnot, or it's about money. And it's a metaphor for leveling up your business, right? Because in order to get to 6, you operate a certain way, but then in order to get to 7, you operate a certain way, but then to get to 8, that's a whole different level of operation. And just everything needs to be really, really on point, right? So we talk about those things. Excuse me. Man, it's all these, the pollen out here, the allergies. But yeah, we talk thing on the podcast and on
Yeah, that's
Clubhouse. Like,
crazy.
what are different things that you need as an entrepreneur to level up and do better business, right? Because a lot of times, especially on social media, all we really see is marketing, sales. We don't really talk about the fulfillment side, really making sure that you have great team members, making sure that you lead them properly, right? Making sure that your customer service is A1. Just all the other things, knowing your numbers inside out, knowing your numbers from a KPI standpoint, right? There's so many different things that you need to know in business. And so it's really about having those conversations with entrepreneurs that are already doing it or are trying to do it. You know, so I really enjoy having those conversations and stuff. So, you know, I have an Instagram, TikTok called A Figure Focus, YouTube page called A Figure Focus as well, where we drop weekly content around that. We have weekly interviews. Got some big interviews coming, man. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to releasing those. And yeah, man, it's just for me in 2023. As I see a lot of people post on social media, I'm seeing a lot of people are having, let's say, an interesting year, right? Compared to the previous years where everything was really hot. You know, now things are starting to kind of dial down, right? So now we really get to see what kind of entrepreneur we are. You know, how do we deal with the adversity, right? So for me, it's about operating the business, but then also having fun, getting back to having fun and doing things that make me happy and not allowing, and then figuring out a way, honestly, here's the biggest thing, figuring out a way to level up your business and get to that next level and stay sane in doing it, right? Because a lot of times we think that in order to get to that next level, we have to grind to where we don't sleep. And how can we do it to where we can sleep and we can have fun and we can travel and we can still do the things that we need to do, right? So we have all those conversations, and that's where I'm at, really trying to figure all that stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So I love the brand. Shout out to Eight Figure Focus. Definitely follow that on all platforms. And again, if you are interested in becoming an EFS client, definitely go to the link in his bio. I can say I've been with Ephraim and them almost 3 years, and I love it. He didn't pay me to say this, but what I love about it the most, honestly, is because I don't have to worry about it and I don't have to do anything. So people you do not want to play with is the IRS. So when it comes to your numbers, taxes, everything like that, you do not want to play around. You want to have a formidable team that you can work with to make sure everything is straight, everything is A1, and you are fully compliant. So what I like it is, of course, with the bookkeeping, every month they like, listen, check out your spreadsheet. Let us know like what this is, get back to us so we can make sure your books are right. We have our monthly calls. We have tax planning. We have, all my statements of cash flow. All my statements are up to date. And then if I do need anything, I can always reach out. If there's anything I get or any type of audit or like whatever it is, tax wise or just bookkeeping planning in general, I know I can reach out to the team and I can get an answer immediately. And to me, that means a lot as a business owner because now I can continue to grow and get clients and market and fulfill. I don't have to worry about the accounting side of the business. So that's why I definitely 100% recommend EFS if you are looking for
Man, I
an
appreciate
accounting
that,
team,
man.
a bookkeeping
That means a
team
lot.
to help take
That
your business
means
to
a
the next
lot.
level.
Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. Definitely, let me know what else I can do to help you. I appreciate, of course, just being a client and just helping me with all my
Yeah.
stuff. And my next goal is just to acquire another property. So of course, I'm gonna need, my statements and everything like that. And that's another thing too. As the last point, that made it so much easier when I was going through the lending process on a personal side. To get my multifamily home is all my stuff was there. So my tax returns, my P&L, and
Yeah.
when you're going through a mortgage, listen, they want everything except an arm and a leg. So being able to literally just get what I need, tax returns, year-to-date P&L, bank statements, having my money set aside through Profit First and stuff like that to be able to close. So to me, that was amazing. That was priceless in itself to not have to try to figure that stuff out
Hey,
when you're going
man,
through the stressful lending
I'm just
process.
excited to see you continue to acquire and grow. I love the fact that you're doing that because a lot of times it's real easy to get caught up in the business and not really focus on building your assets in the company or whatnot. So that's dope, man.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, man. So yeah, I said thank you for coming
Likewise, man.
on,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Have a
Thanks
great
for
rest of
having
the
me.
day. And we'll talk more
All
soon.
right, man. Take care. Bye.
All right.